Hey guys, it's me, Mr.250, and welcome back to Higurashi. With our battle plans set, we'll just have to see how they turn out. I can only assume that our plans aren't going to quite go to plan. This was the first time I'd ever woken with such clarity. It was 5:59, just moments before my alarm would go off. I was amazed at the precision of my internal clock. I'd made preparations for the next day of school before I went to bed. I changed quickly and descended to the deserted lower floor. It appeared that my mom was still asleep. Neither breakfast nor lunch was ready. Yesterday I just unilaterally declared that I would be leaving early today, so it couldn't be helped. I slathered jam on some bread and topped it with instant coca. Just as I was finishing up breakfast, Mom rose groggily from her slumber.
あら、ケイチ、今日は早いのね。
I told you this last night, Mom.
学校の行事か何か？
別に。
Answering bluntly, I picked up my bag and stood after stuffing 2 slices of bread down my throat.
もう行くの？お弁当は？もうちょっと待ってくれないとできないわよ。
If I waited for her to make my lunch, then I would end up being the same time as usual. If I did that, it would raise the chances of me running into Rina and Mion on the way. Yes, from today onwards I was going to school alone.
今日はいいよ。
じゃあお昼はどうするの？
抜け出して商店で菓子パンでも買うよ。
そう。じゃあこれ、お昼代ね。ちゃんとレシート持ってくるのよ。
I took the 1,000 yen bill from Mom and slipped it into my pocket.
こんなに早いけど、レナちゃんたちもこんなに早いの？
いや、俺だけ。
レナちゃんには早く出るって伝えてあるの？
I have no reason to tell her every little detail, now do I? Finding it difficult answering the onslaught of questions, I made an annoyed face.
レナが来たら、ケイチは先に行ったって伝えてよ。
ちょっとケイチ、待ちなさい。
It's not that I didn't trust my parents. I just couldn't rely on them. They couldn't help me. I could only hope that they didn't get involved. It was safer that way. My mom's annoying voice was cut off by the slam of the door. For the first time since I moved here, I headed down the road to school alone. I thought we were going to see Rena. You know, just like Rena, like, Keiichi, what are you doing up so early? Yeah, just like I discussed with someone in the comments, every time the music cuts out, it's just like, oh, what's happening? I'm also, once again, doing this at night, so I'm sure I'll be a little on edge still. Up until now, I had always walked down the same path at the same time each day. So I always met with the same people, at the same places. But today was different. I didn't meet the people I would normally, and nobody was at the places where I would normally met them. Of course, Rena wasn't in the spot where we usually met, and there wasn't anyone at the spot where we would have met up with Mion. The length of the tree's shadows, the morning air, and the brightness of the sun was a completely different type of morning from what I was used to. Without a doubt, it felt strange. It left me with the impression that I had destroyed the illusion Hinamizawa had set up for me before it had enough time to prepare all the props that needed to deceive me.
あら、ケイチ君。今朝は早いわね。みんなで早朝から待ち合わせ？
The person who called out to me was someone we always passed by, as if they were taking a walk along the edge of the fields. Their name was... I forgot. Of course, this wasn't the spot where we usually passed each other.
今朝は早くに目が覚めちゃったので、気分転換なんです。あまり気にしないでください。
I threw out a random excuse.
レナちゃんやミオンちゃんはどうしたんだい？今日は一人なの？
ええ、まあ。
I was being asked the same type of questions my mom was asking. so I answered them in the same uninteresting, vague manner. It wasn't funny being asked where Rena was each time I passed by someone, but maybe it was to be expected. It was because for so long we were always together so amicably. Even I felt that if I let my guard down, we could still be friends. Stop it, Keiichi. Don't think about that anymore. All we can think about is hate. You spent all day yesterday thinking about how dangerous it was to go soft, didn't you? Beep, beep. The car horn blared from out of nowhere. Even though I was walking, lost in thought, that horn was way too close. A mechanical behemoth barreled at me from behind, catching me completely off guard. By the time I turned around, the van's hulking chassis was almost on top of me. I'd seen plenty of cars veer to the opposite shoulder to avoid pedestrians, but this car was doing the opposite. It felt like there was somebody on the opposite shoulder, and the van was swerving in my direction to avoid them. That blissfully ignorant train of thought delayed me from realizing something much, much more important. That large mass was hurtling right at me. Was it going to hit me? The inside of my head instantly flooded with a painfully cold liquid. In that moment, the scene before me, no, time itself, had frozen. In the silence of that frozen moment, I compared the van, so close that I had no way to dodge it, and my body, the upper half twisted awkwardly in order to look behind me. There was no way I could dive out of the way in my current position. If I lost focus now, this moment would unpause, and I would probably be plowed over, caught in the silly pose. Bend my upper body over towards the patty by the side of the road. If I bent far enough, I'd get away with just being hit by the side view mirror. As soon as the thought crossed my mind, the temporal stasis was shattered by the deafening sound of the van. The side mirror struck my shoulder, sending me spinning off through the air like a top, locked in my contorted position. Splash! Sent tumbling through the air, I crashed into the muddy patty by the side of the road. And in that van was Rena. My entire body was soiled and drenched. But the choice I had made in that instant was unmistakably for the best. I was covered in mud, but when the alternative was being hit by the car, it was the closest I could be to being unscathed. Rising out from the patty, I had enough in me to glare over at the stopped van and yell profanities at the driver. Hey, you big jerk! I'm not sure if he was able to see me, but the van sped off suddenly. I feel like that might have been like a hit on you. Somebody might have ordered a hit on you. I couldn't help but continue yelling out profanities. The disgrace from being covered in mud hurt me more than any physical wounds. I slogged through the muddy patty and made my way back onto the road. I'll track you down and sue you. If I go looking for a van, I'm sure to find it in this little village. The path I was on had rice paddies on either side, and it had become so narrow that one car could barely fit through. It wasn't a place you could tear full speed down in a car, let alone pass by pedestrians. Not only was it a narrow road, but the car just now was closer to my side of the road than the other when it passed me. Even as I cursed, I was desperately trying to suppress the dark cloud rolling up within me. Or roiling, I think. This wasn't just a hit and run. That car just now was trying to run me over, wasn't it? Thinking back, I did feel like there had been a car creeping up on me slowly for a while. That's right. As soon as I'd parted ways with that person taking a walk, I had that feeling the whole time. If it had wanted to pass me, then it had no shortage of chances. Normally it would have felt suspicious and turned around sooner. But I was lost in thought, and I was kicking myself for not realizing it was there sooner. And then, when the path became narrow and there was no one else in sight, he floored it. If I had hesitated for even a moment, the result would have been no laughing matter. As the adrenaline rush from being nearly run over subsided, and the realization of just how terrifying the preceding events were sunk in, there was no doubt about it. That van was intentionally trying to hit me. A cold, viscous sweat seeped from my scalp and slid down my back before dribbling off. I struggled to avoid falling into a panic. There was still the possibility that this was really just an accident. Calm down, Keiichi. But also, don't be so naive, Keiichi. Being that lax will get you killed next time. You need to always be on your toes. Don't give them any openings. If my enemy was really out to kill me, then next time they would use a more reliable method. If that time came, and I was acting like I was now, getting covered in mud was the price I had paid for my own naivety. Covered in mud, but without injury. Not even a sprain. I guess this is what you would call the silver lining. I began walking again, this time cautiously. I wouldn't even show a hint of carelessness. I had suspected only Rena and the others up until now. No, it was because I had suspected them that I had believed that there were no other enemies. Uishi-san had said so, didn't he? There was the possibility of a village conspiracy. Was I really mired so deeply in this situation that I had no choice but to try and carry on as usual? Wouldn't it be safest just to hole myself up in my house? But the moment I abandoned my regular routine, everyone around me would abandon theirs as well. That was just too horrifying of a thought. Our friends are going to see us later in the school day and they're going to be like, "Hey, Keiichi, did you go for a swim?" Put on their creepy eyes. "Was that swim good? Not too muddy?" I recalled the tales Oishi-san told me of when Hinamizawa was still called Onigafuchi. A frightening tale of an entire village of demons hunting their prey, surrounding them and eating them alive. One must not interfere with the demons. One must pretend not to see it. The enemy were numerous. The whole village. The villagers, with their unwavering faith in the curse, would do nothing to help me. The strong, sudden flash of sunshine made me slightly dizzy. I had no idea what was going on anymore. When I suspected it was the work of man, I would catch a glimpse of Oshiro-sama's curse. And when I suspected it was Oyashiro-sama's curse, someone would poke their head out. What was coincidence? What was intentional? Who was my enemy? Who was just a bystander? No, what I really, truly wanted to know was, how did I end up with the proverbial bullseye painted on my back? Eventually, an answer in a form I can understand will appear. I don't care when that will happen. Because until then, I cannot die. That alone fueled my resolve to fight, and will keep me alive. So we're going to keep going to school even though we're coated in mud? I remembered seeing the metal bat in the gym's storage shed, but there was a padlock on the door barring my entry. At the very least, I wanted to get my hands on it before everyone else arrived at school. I circled around the school grounds impatiently. But all I could find were things like pieces of lumber, nothing that I could bring into the classroom easily. Then, I had an epiphany. I should search inside the classroom. If it was something in the classroom to begin with, then there wouldn't be a problem. I could tell that everyone's indoor shoes were still in their lockers. Good thing I came early. Nobody else was here yet. I wondered, what could I find in the classroom? I didn't think I could find an especially effective weapon like a bat. But it couldn't be helped at this point. Guess we'll just have to tape him up. Until the gym storage shed was open, I needed to find a substitute. A lingering hint of naivety whispered that there was no way I'd be attacked at school. But such soft ideas would no longer protect me. To think that they were slowly making their way into parts of my life that I had once thought impenetrable. In the worst case, my own house might not be safe anymore. That was an incredibly frightening thought. But I believed that not considering the worst case scenario would have been even more frightening. Anyways, I will survive. So long as I lived, then I will definitely be able to escape this labyrinth of nonsense. Definitely. My exploration of the classroom came to an impasse. That much was to be expected. There was no way there would be anything that could be a weapon in the classroom. In the case of emergency, there was probably nothing I could do but swing my own chair around. I mean, not a terrible idea. My gaze landed on the lockers that had come to be used for personal storage. The locker that Mion used to store her pile of games was among them. There was one for each person in the class, all lined up. Of course, there was one for me as well. Oh, yeah. There was supposed to still be a tracksuit in my locker. Seeing me covered in mud would be strange. I should go change later. But first I needed a weapon. If one of my classmates came, it would be hard to rummage through all the lockers. I swiftly began opening the lockers one by one. They were mostly just filled with things like gym clothes, personal items, and umbrellas. An umbrella? If I couldn't find anything better, then this would have to be my weapon. I was about to give up on finding anything decent when I opened a locker that held exactly what I wanted. A machine gun. Oh, it was without a doubt a metal bat. It was well worn and pretty beaten up, but there was no doubt it was usable. In that locker that reeked of mold, there also hung a baseball uniform. It was probably the locker of a student in a Pee-wee league or something like that. If that was the case, then he'd probably ask for it back. At that time, I could hear the voices of the children scuffling their way noisily in from the hallway. Amongst them, I could make out Rika-chan and Satoko.
おはようございますです。あらあらあら、今朝はお早いですわね、ケイチさん。
I'm gonna make fun of him because he's covered in mud. I nonchalantly hid the bat I was holding behind my back.
なんなんですか、その身なりは。泥だらけでしたよ。
ああ、まあちょっとあってな。すぐ着替えるから勘弁しろ。
With that said, I began taking off my clothes. Satoko began to blush just as I expected her to.
レディーの前でお着替えなんてしつけがなってませんことよ。
着替えをじーっと見てるレディーもしつけがなってないと思うぞ。男子は更衣室がないんだから諦めろ。
As Satoko feigned disgust, she went into the hall, still blushing. Conversely, Rika-chan continued to stare at me, preparing to change.
リカちゃんもレディーなら着替えを見てるのは良くないと思うぞ。
僕はレディーじゃないですからいいのです。
She deliberately pouted and looked at me with upturned eyes.
じゃあリカちゃんも今からレディーだ。
レディーなら仕方ありませんです。
Almost forget that they're, murderous kids lurking in the village. Rika-chan, appearing to be satisfied with being considered a lady, made her way to join Satoko in the hallway. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, Rika-chan stopped suddenly and turned back towards me.
ケイチは野球を始めますですか？
That's what I was looking for, some sort of comment. It seemed that Rika-chan had noticed the bat.
ああ、ちょっとさ、体がなまってさ、ちょっと素振りでも始めようかなってな。
ケ 健康に気を使うのはとても良いことだと思いますです。
She was talking like an old lady, despite her appearance. After saying that, Rika-chan started to leave again, but stopped and looked back at me once more.
そのバット、なくさないでくださいね、です。
It seems she already knew I took it out of someone's locker. There was no name on the locker door. I didn't know whose bat it was, but I would be borrowing it until they complained. It wouldn't be for long, just until the gym storage shed was opened. After quickly changing into the tracksuit, I checked the time. I still had plenty of time before class began because I came so early. I took the bat in one hand and went out to the schoolyard. That was, of course, to practice my swing. I needed to make it know that I would always have a bat on me so I could practice my swing. It's part of his character, you see. At some point, the sunlight had become even stronger. Disregarding my classmates as they made their way to school, I took my position in the shadow of the school building. I wasn't the academic type, and I wasn't much of an athlete either. I might get muscle pain if I just suddenly started swinging. I should at least start out with some warm-ups. I doubt anyone would think I was doing something out of the ordinary. Which was the exact opposite of my actual mental state. I gripped the bat and swung lightly. The bat was by no means light. The weight would make it a reliable weapon when I needed it to be. Of course, I could only pray that the moment I needed to use this as a weapon would never come. Just carrying it around could deter attacks against me. At least, that's what I hoped.
あれケイちゃんあんた何やってんの
Being bombarded with such a hysterical voice, I jumped.
ああ、ケイチくん、野球部だよ。野球部だよ。
It was Rena and Mion.
先に行ったって言われて驚いたけど、ケイちゃん、あんた何やってるわけ？
見てわからないかよ。素振りだよ。甲子園だよ。別にダイエットでもいいぞ。
ダイエットってケイちゃん、そんなに太ってたっけ？
ああ、知らなかったろ。実は三段腹なんだ。もちもちでタプタプなんだぞ。
もちもちでタプタプ。
レナ、変な想像しなくていいぞ。
To disrupt Rena from imagining something that vulgar, I ruffled her hair messily.
じゃあまあ、頑張って県大会を目指してちょうだいよ。おじさん応援してるわ。野球部の強い高校、教えよっか。そこにいる左腕の亀田くんが、すごいピッチャーなんだけどさ。頑張ってね。
Seems they've already taken me for a baseball nut, but oh well. Well, if I really did make it to the championship, it would be a cinch. After all, I'd be the pitcher and the catcher. I'd pitch the ball, then run past the ball I just threw and change over to being the catcher in a burst of super incredible explosive speed. I laughed dryly at the ludicrous image. Coming back to my senses, I smashed the bat against the ground.
くそ！何笑ってんだよ、俺！
Can't be friends! But can't be friends with a bunch of murderers. I pounded the ground over and over. With each impact, the reverberation traveling through the bat stung my hands. If they smile at me like that, oh... Don't allow anyone close to me. Don't trust anyone. No matter how many times I tell myself that. If they made me smile like that, I already knew quite well that there were demons dwelling in my smiling friends. But I just couldn't believe it. Did that kind of split personality really exist? Like how Rena confessed to the doctor. Were they simply being possessed by Oyashiro-sama? In other words, Did a supernatural being like Oyashiro-sama really exist? And was it possessing everyone to try and kill me? Yeah, that would be wonderful. If only everyone were actually my friends all along, and everything was all just Oyashiro-sama's fault.
前原圭一のバカ野郎だから
And everyone thinks Keiichi's slowly going mad because he's been yelling at himself for the past 2 days. I yelled out, drawing out all the power from the pit of my stomach, and raised the bat violently into the air.
甘えるんじゃね
As I screamed out with all my might, I beat the metal bat into the ground over and over. And then some, little kid comes over, "Hey, can I have my bat back?" With every impact, my weakness was being beaten down. You're bending my metal bat. Can you please stop? Smash, forget. Smash, don't be soft. Smash, know your enemy. Smash. Like hell I'd let them kill me. My shoulders heaving up and down from my ragged breathing. I heard the first bell ring just as I calmed down. I gasped with a sudden realization. This was the final bell, or that was. As I felt all the tension drained from me, I let out a deep breath. My mind was in a muddled state for much of the entire day. I didn't feel like I was awake, but it didn't feel like I was asleep either. I couldn't say it felt especially comfortable, but I felt a kind of relief that the sanctity of the school part of my daily life had yet to be violated. How long would I have to keep on living like this? I could only grit my teeth and bear with it, as this living hell slowly gnawed away at me.
ケイチくん、やろうやろう。部活の時間なんだよ。だよ。
The sound of Rena's voice brought me back to my senses.
ほらほら、ケイちゃん、ぼーっとしない。机を寄せて寄せて。
Everyone was moving their desks together as usual. That's right. It was happy fun club time. But I had no intention of taking part. I haphazardly stuffed the contents of my desk into my bag as I prepared to go home. It was a weak-handed gesture to avoid having to actually say, "I'll be going home now."
なんだよ、ケイちゃん。今日も直帰なわけ？
Mion sounded quite disappointed.
気分が乗らないんだ。しばらくほっといてくんないかな。
The tone of the words that spilled from my mouth matched Mion's disapproving glare. It felt like the air in the room had dried out. Satoko looked like she was about to say something, but perhaps dissuaded by the mood, she swallowed her words and stayed silent. Nobody said a thing. I took that to mean that I could leave if I wanted. But the collective gaze of the four of them, like the tiny pins used to mount an insect in a display, held me in place. Rena was the one who cut through the heavy mood.
ケイチくん、やっぱり女の子と一緒に遊ぶのなんか
Bunch of
嫌だ
girls!
ったかな。かな。
She said it in such a melancholic tone that it sent a wave of pain racing through my heart. If this pain was going to kill me, I wanted it to be the soft part of me that could still feel pain. I tore at my chest, violently tearing at the pins that held me in place.
そういうわけじゃねえよ。
I'd only be hurting myself by saying anything more, so I swallowed my words. Cutting things off there, I turned away and exited the classroom. They didn't speak a word to me as I left. You're gonna regret this later, Keiichi. It was a long, dull trip back home, but I didn't lose focus. I firmly squeezed the grip of the bat, which was already soggy from sweat. Realizing that, I wiped it down with my sleeve. If something were to happen, I wouldn't want it to be slippery. Since this morning, I'd become especially sensitive to the presence of cars. Even while walking, my ears pricked up and sought out threatening sounds and presences that could be closing in. And that was why I could hear it. Without a doubt, there were footsteps. Those footsteps had matched up perfectly with mine for a while now. From what I could sense, it was just one person. But I had no intention of being careless. Did they intend to follow me like that car this morning, until we were in a good location to assault me? Then it wasn't a good idea to keep walking like this. I stopped walking and looked back. The wooded path crowded with trees responded with silence, as if there was nobody there to begin with. But I wouldn't be fooled. I was certain footsteps were following me. And just as I stopped, the footsteps stopped as well. Meaning the person following me wanted to keep their distance. I think we need to get Keiichi some, rear view mirrors, like a hat with mirrors so he can see behind him. That was, without question, proof I was their target. I held my breath, waiting for that presence to panic and start moving again. The trees rustled with the sound of the wind. The Higurashi also joined in the dissonant chorus, trying to throw my focus into disarray. Had 5 minutes passed? Or had I been like this for a whole 30 minutes? It was so hard to breathe that I might have suffocated. It seemed I would be the first one to panic. Without a doubt, he was lurking in the shade of that tree with bated breath. Then, I'd make the first move. I fixed my grip on the bat. I raised it up to my shoulder to be ready to swing at any time.
おい、いるんだろそこに。
With all of my might, I screamed at whoever was hiding in the shade of the trees. He doesn't have much might. That was a very loud scream. But the presence in the shade didn't budge. Until the moment I found them, they had no intention of revealing themselves.
分かってんだよ。そこにいるのはよ。
I screamed out angrily at them again, but even still, they didn't move at all. Then I'll go over there myself. With all due diligence, I approached step by step. Stepping into the tree's shadow, I saw a human figure there. That figure was curled up like a small animal.